Hello, everyone, everywhere. This is Bob Thibodeau with the Kingdom Crossroads Podcast, and you are listening to Life Transformation Radio with my good friend Sean Douglas. Be sure to subscribe to his podcast so you will not miss any of the upcoming episodes, and be blessed in all that you do.
Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. This show is all about life transformations and our journey from where we were to why we are doing what we are doing today. We will discuss the hiccups, the roller coasters, and the blood, sweat, and tears that has been poured out while discovering our purpose. It is all about our transformations. Here is your host, Sean Douglas.
Good morning and welcome to Life Transformation Radio. I am your host, Master Resilience Implementer, TEDx speaker, business positioning strategist, and author, Sean Douglas. This show is currently heard in over 70 countries, such as the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Mexico, Australia, Sweden. So I want to thank you to those who are listening from around the world. Life Transformation Radio is all about our transformation. Here is where we tell the stories of why we're doing what we're doing. We highlight those transformational moments that have changed our lives and how we use them to transform others and elevate their lives as well. You can listen to us live right here on Blog Talk Radio Network, Tuesday through Friday. Join us as we go live. You can join our Facebook community, Life Transformation Radio Community, and interact and talk to the guests that I bring on the show. I ask that you subscribe to Life Transformation Radio wherever you're comfortable listening to podcasts. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, Player FM, Radio Public, Overcast, CastBox, the Himalaya app, and the Google Play Music app on Android. On the show, I bring on entrepreneurs, speakers, business owners, coaches, and other podcasters and authors who are amazing at what they do and are having an impact in the world around them. And my guest today does just that. If you have any questions for anybody that I bring on the show, during our live broadcast, you can call us up at 657-383-1109. Again, the number is 657-383-1109. And with that, please help me welcome to the show my guest, Patrick Fitzgibbons. How's it going, Patrick? Welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
Hey, Sean, it's a pleasure to be with you and an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me on.
Man, I'm super pumped to have you. I love having military veterans on the show, and I love having other podcasters on the show. So it's like super, super amazing that we get to do this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, like I said, when you invited me on my show, I was like, I gotta go on Sean's show. I love what you're doing.
Heck yeah, man. So today, this episode is Business and Organizational Leadership with Army veteran Patrick Fitzgibbons. He is a retired police commander from Colorado with over 2 decades of experience in many different roles. He is also an adjunct college professor and enjoys teaching the next generation of criminal justice professionals. Patrick holds advanced degrees in business and organizational leadership. A former Army paratrooper with the elite 82nd Airborne Division, Patrick is an avid supporter of active military members and veterans. Patrick is also the host and creator of CJ Evolution, a top-ranked criminal justice podcast that can be found at www.cjevolution.com. All of it is in the show notes. His LinkedIn, Instagram, everything is there. So I got to start off, man. You've got a very, very solid category that your show is in, because drama, criminal justice, and comedy are the top 3 categories that are the most downloaded podcasts on iTunes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, I started the show about 3 years ago, Sean, and I think at the time there wasn't a lot of officers doing podcasts, and I always love giving back. I mean, everybody who's in law enforcement, first responders, they serve. And I wanted to, the whole purpose, the premise behind the show was to kind of educate the public more on what law enforcement officers go through, some of the hot topics of the day are, and to to improve, law enforcement everywhere through, through education and things I have learned throughout my career.
Yeah, and so I love that, and it's very necessary. Even military, police more, but even military are we feel the hate. I've been in a couple restaurants before, and they won't serve you. We were at a mom and pop shop, and I said, "Hey, do you offer military discounts?" And they're like, "Why do you deserve a discount?" Whatever. I'm like, I was just asking. Some places do, some places don't. So it's like,
yeah.
And I've been in places, where people have yelled at me. They're like, "Really, a discount? Really?" Like, okay, well, maybe not.
Yeah, I just don't know how. I recently wrote an article for Law Enforcement Today. I'm a contributor to Law Enforcement Today, and I just what you just said, Sean, is exactly what my article is about. This upcoming article that's going to hit pretty soon, and I don't know how we've got to this point in our country, and maybe we've always been this way. I doubt it, but I don't know how we got here. We're at a point right now where we're berating and we're putting down our brave men and women who serve in the military, who serve in law enforcement. I have my ideas. I just don't know how we got to this point and how we get out of it, or we're stuck here. I think
100%.
With the great things you're doing, what you're doing, Sean, with Life Transformation Radio is amazing. People need to hear what you're doing, and they are. We need more people like you out there that are advocating for military and law enforcement, because I think there's a lot of people that do. I just wish those people were more vocal.
Yeah, and you as well. I mean, you're talking about, educating the people about the life of a first responder, police officer, talking about the veterans, because there are a lot of veterans, I don't know what kind of skills military police can do on the outside, but it seems like, and I know that there's a lot of, security forces, security police, and everybody that leaves the military and goes, well, might as well be a cop because that's what I did in the military and that's all I know.
Yeah, there's so many different things. Yeah, and there's so many different. I mean, the skill sets that one learns in the military. I don't care what branch you're in, is amazing. You know that, Sean, being in the Air Force. The skill sets are just amazing. So what I tell people is do a self-assessment, man. Just really do some self-reflection, dig deep, and say, all right, what do I have? Because everybody has amazing in them. I really do. So, if you're coming out of the military, transitioning into civilian world, I mean, you have so much to offer, the world. And it just shouldn't be, well, I guess I'll do this. It's the only thing I'm qualified for. You can do anything you want. Right.
Yep, 100%. So let's talk about you for a second. What is your deep why for what you do? Why did you start the podcast? Why did you go into the Army and into police? So what is your deep why for what you do?
That's a great question. Well, it started off. Let's start with why did I go in the military? Because that was the furthest away. I joined because my dad was a career Army guy. He was a lawyer in the Air Force or Army. Then he transitioned to the Air Force. He was a JAG officer, and I always wanted to go into the military. As a matter of fact, I'm the only one of my brothers and sisters who went in the military. I always admired my dad, still do, and I wanted to serve. Always had that serve bug, for lack of a better word. So I wanted to serve in the Army. I knew what I wanted to do. Went and talked to the recruiter, ended up going to the 82nd Airborne Division and jumping out of planes, perfectly good airplanes for a while. And then I always had this, even in high school, Sean, I always knew that, I always had this feeling that I wanted to, because I knew I was going to go in the military at one point, but I always wanted to be a cop. So, there was a crossroads. I was going to end my enlistment in the military, but then I was thinking about staying in, but I ended it, and I said, all right, what's next? I want to be, I've always wanted to be a cop, so I came back to Colorado with my wife, entered into the police academy, and the rest is history. I got on with the police department here in southeastern Colorado and did about a decade with them, and then came on to the Front Range of Colorado and did about 13 years and retired as an operations commander. But the why, I've started from the bottom and worked my way up. And the why is, I started this show, Sean, because Yes, I'm always forward thinking, and I knew that I was going to retire someday in law enforcement. Everybody does, and I wanted to continue giving back to law enforcement. I'm obviously a huge advocate for law enforcement, and I wanted to provide a platform or medium where I could bring great guests on the show and give it back to the law enforcement community, because I think we need to hear that. That's my why. I think we law enforcement officers everywhere, we're surrounded not all by negativity, but a lot of negativity in certain press outlets. And the why for me is just pumping officers up and providing great guests. And I talk about a lot of different issues on my show, but the premise behind the show is really kind of to give inspirational advice to pump officers everywhere up, because I think we're in a time now, we've been in there for last several years, in my opinion, where officers are just constantly berated. They're constantly put down. So the why for me was to pump officers up and to provide that message to them. And I'm just blessed to have the opportunity to do that.
Right. Yep. 100%. I don't know. There's so much you can say on the topic, it's just like military, I've been called names and, put down, and they're like, you're, war hungry and like whatever. And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you do know the Air Force doesn't actually go to war. Like, we're usually many miles away launching airplanes to drop bombs. Like, you need to go yell at the Marines and the Army guys who are on the front lines. Like, Air Force doesn't do it. And they're like, well, you're military and you're, you condone it. I'm like, I'm defending freedom. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's what I signed up to do. And I'm giving you the freedom to yell at me right now. And if that's how you feel, I'm sorry. There's nothing else I can say, but it's just like the same thing with stand up to do a job, and they're protecting and whatever. And there's bad people in the military. There's bad people on the police force. You're going to encounter bad people everywhere. And I hate getting looped into, we literally at the base that I stationed at, a guy killed his wife. That happened. And now all of a sudden, all the military is a bunch of, murdering bandits. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's just ignorance, Sean, with a lot of people, or some people. I shouldn't say a lot of people. It's just that they don't know. They get on Instagram or Twitter, and they get together, talk to their friends, and this is what their friends are saying, and they just run with it. It's just ignorance. Educate yourself. I'm not talking about you.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people out there who get in your face and call you a warmonger. Just read a magazine or educate yourself. Talk to some people who are educated. Come on. To berate you for serving in the military or any officer out there. And I'm all for free speech, Sean. Look, I'm all for free speech. But again, it goes back to what I was saying before. I don't know how we've gotten to this point. I can't remember a time in history. I think we live in one of the greatest times in history, but I also think we live in a time right now where I've never seen it. Maybe you have, where military members and law enforcement, first responders are constantly except the firemen. Everybody loves firemen for some reason, but I'm just kidding.
I know, right?
But military members. It's the calendars, but we're constantly under attack, and I don't understand. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but again, the brave men and women that serve this country in the military and law enforcement, other first responder jobs should be respected, and shouldn't be kicked out of restaurants because they wear a uniform or a badge. It's just ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. And so I'm curious about your transition from the military, and I don't know how many years you did. I'm curious about the military transition into the police force, because there's a lot of statistics out there. Right now we're constantly talking about the 22 a day and the 22 a day, and if you add in the first responders with suicide and veterans, it's more like 30 a day if you combine both demographics. And then they talk about how the life expectancy of a 20-year veteran in the military is about 5 years, because they lose their identity, they lose their brotherhood, they lose the camaraderie, they lose the high-paced life of military life, especially if you're a Marine or if you're like paratrooper, where you guys are just type A, go, mission first, energy is put towards this one mission, and we're 1,000% into it, right? So when you retire and you throttle back, it's like, man, this is boring. So they always talk about the life expectancy of a veteran is about 5 years, you know. So I'm curious about your transition and how you handled that.
Well, back when I got out of the military, Sean, and that's a great question, I got out in 1994, so we weren't, we didn't have as much. We had conflicts. There's always conflicts going on in the world.
Sure.
But we didn't have the conflicts that we do now that are going on, where our brave men and women are serving 3, 4, 5 tours overseas in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and all these other places. So when I got out, we had a few places that we were at. But again, I think the conflicts have risen over the years, so I think that creates again the PTSD and other issues for veterans coming home. For me personally, when I got out, I knew what I wanted to do. So much I think about entrepreneurs and business people and successful people like you, Sean, is about mindset. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do. I had a goal. I had a great support network around me that supported me, my wife and my family, and so I think that's huge. I'm not saying every veteran that comes out and is transitioning doesn't have that, but I think it starts with, okay, what are your goals? What do you want to do in your life? And I was in a rapid deployment unit with the 82nd Airborne. We were all over the place all the time. I miss my brothers that I served with, but again, for me, I mean, I knew, and I still keep in contact with them. I knew what I wanted. I knew where I wanted to go. So maybe that's a simplistic answer. I don't know, but I think it starts with, okay, what are your goals? What do you want after the military? And I agree with you. I think it's harder when you're doing – I did law enforcement for 23 years. It was very difficult, to leave, but I knew it was time to go. I wanted to do bigger and better things. And so, again, having that, I think my advice to people out there who are, transitioning is, okay, what's your plan? What's your plan? Okay, you're still young. You're getting out of the military. You still got a whole life ahead of you. What do you want to do? And start writing those goals and plans down. So that's what I did at a very young age when I got out of the military, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I just went for it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you bring up an excellent point. In 1994, it was the coming down of Desert Storm, and that was a major conflict, and it was over pretty rapidly. It was a couple of years, I mean, we've been fighting the same war in Afghanistan and every place else, for upwards of 15 years. I was in Iraq in 2003, and it was Operation Iraqi Freedom. And we were deployed, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was, and when they talk about deployment, it's like, oh, yeah, we'll be in and out. Like, it's like a 3 or 4 month deployment. Like, it's fine. And we would, rapidly rotate. No, it's like 6 months. It was like, oh, my gosh, like what? And it was the time of the change. And everybody said it was like, man, times are changing. Like, it's going to be like this a lot. It's going to be like this a lot. In 2008, I was deployed 228 days. Not 3 or 4 months, not 180, like 228 days I was gone in 2008. In 2013, I was gone over 200 days. Like, so, I mean, for the better part of the year, I mean, you're gone. And so, Marines and Army guys are friends of mine, they're like, gee, must be nice at 200 days. I'm going on like 400. I'm like, hey, man, you can hate all you want. I chose what branch I want to go in. You chose what branch. Like, it's not my fault. I'm sorry. But at the same time, you're absolutely right, because I've been in almost every single desert country. And it wasn't like, okay, this is our deployment forever. It's like, oh, now we're going here. Okay, now we're going here. Okay, I've gotten off of one plane and gotten onto another plane.
Yeah, I just think it's so much more difficult for military 100%. Personnel. I mean, it's always been difficult, but my hat goes off to the brave men and women, yourself included, Sean, who are serving, because I can't imagine being in now, and that's why it really irritates me, pisses me off when I read about this, and again, I think most people out there are supportive of the military, but like what you said, the guy that's in front of your face, yelling at you, he's got freedom of speech and stuff, but show a little respect, man. You know what I mean? I mean, you can have your opinion, but you don't have to kick people out of restaurants and make a spectacle and things like. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. So, what about the transformation? Do you feel like? Not even like life transformation, but just how you were in the Army. Were you the same as you were? Like, did that mentality transfer to becoming a police officer, or does the mentality that you learn at a young age in the military or how you were before the military, does it stay the same, or how are you different? What was that transformation like?
When you're in the military, especially in a unit like 82nd, I mean, it's going to change you. I mean, you're hardened. I mean, for lack of a better word. You learn a lot of discipline. You learn to follow orders and chain of command, all the stuff about, Sean. So for me, it was a natural progression. From getting out of the military and becoming a law enforcement officer. I had the discipline, I had the training, I had the firearms, training, and all that stuff that helped me make the transition into law enforcement. So, but I did have to tone it down a little bit because, I was so used to, calling everybody sir and ma'am, and not that that's a bad thing, but I learned to become more relaxed because when you're in a unit, like I said, I mean, elite units, and you're just a discipline and things. So it did change me in the military, I think, in good ways. And then I got into law enforcement. I had to tone it down a little bit because I was rigid. But it's, civilian law enforcement, which is tough. But it did transform me in a good way, I think. I learned a lot, along the way, as it should be. You should also, constantly be learning in whatever you're doing out there. And I had a great time in law enforcement. It was an amazing career. But the military definitely helped me in law enforcement. And, it was. I don't think it was a tough transition. I think it was a natural progression for me. But everybody has their own journey.
So I know a couple of people. Actually, right now, I know two. They did like 10 or 12 years, in the military, and they did the whole, force shaping, and they're like, oh, I'm just getting out. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm getting out, And then a year into it, they're like, screw it, I'm joining the Guard. And then a year into the Guard, they're like, screw it, I'm just going to go back to active duty. Like, I can't do it. Like it's that civilian world. Like, there's no structure. Like, you have to be responsible for your own structure at this point. You have to set the regimen.
Yeah.
You have to, right? And be disciplined. Like, you need to take it out because, in the military, even as a police officer, you're told where to report, when to show up, when to, how to do things. This is what you need to do, like all of your life, Yeah. And then you get out and you're on your own and they're like, the hell do I do? And I think that's the problem is like you said before, they haven't identified exactly what they want to do in their life. They get out because of hatred. Most of the guys are getting out because, like, screw the military. I'm sick of this crap. And they have hatred. They're cool for like 3 months. It's like a big, long, extended leave. And then all of a sudden it hits them and goes, crap. Now what do I got to do? Right?
Well, and that's not, again, you got to have that plan. Because the one thing I learned a long time ago, Sean, is, and some people probably don't want to hear this, is the world doesn't owe you anything. The world doesn't owe you anything. Now, again, that's not discounting the service that brave men and women do, but the world's just not going to hand you anything. I mean, you have to go out there and fight for it. You have to have a plan. You have to write your goals down and things like that. So for those of you who are going to transition pretty soon, I mean, have goals. Not that, and some of you might, or a lot of you might, but for those people that get out and kind of just sit around and wonder what to do, again, you need to do some self-reflection and figure out, okay, I have these skill sets, great skill sets that I learned. How can I apply them to the private sector? And I really do think, Sean, in my opinion, it's who you surround yourself with. If you're surrounding yourself with negative people that are just going to pull you down, that's where you're going to be.
Oh, yeah.
You need to surround yourself with people that are going to pump you up. And I'm not saying we live in a bubble and we live in, unicorns and rainbows and everything's perfect all the time. I'm not saying that. You're going to have bad days. But you need to surround yourself with some people who are going to really inspire you and push you to that next level.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely agree. So let's talk about your podcast, CJE Evolution. Talk about your podcast, where they can find it, what's it about.
Well, the Criminal Justice Evolution podcast, again, I started about 3 years ago. I've had amazing guests. I'm up to 282 episodes right now.
Wow.
I think you're gonna come on the show, which I'm pumped for.
Yeah.
But I have so many different guests on the show. I've had New York Times bestselling authors. I've had ex-Navy SEALs that have come on. I've had, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, physical fitness experts, psychologists. And again, the whole premise behind the show is to educate and to give back to law enforcement community and criminal justice professionals. And, and I get people who aren't even in the criminal justice field that listen to the show that reach out to me. So I love the show.
Very cool.
I love, again, just talking to people and giving back to the criminal justice community and just pumping them up and providing them inspiration. We talked about it earlier. I think we live in a time right now, unfortunately, where law enforcement's under attack. It's been under attack for a while, same as the military. Yeah. And my goal is to provide a show out there where people can tune in and say, all right, it's just not all doom and gloom. And, Pat's talking about some cool stuff. And I do talk about some issues that are depressing, but the overall goal of the podcast is to provide inspiration and to provide, motivation and pump those criminal justice professionals up. And you can find it at cjevolution.com. And if you want to reach out to me, great, man. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. And then, it's on iTunes and all the podcatchers and
Stitcher and iTunes and all those platforms. So, yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. So everybody listening right now, write this down. Subscribe to CJE Evolution, Criminal Justice Evolution. Go look for Patrick Fitzgibbons podcast, CJ Evolution. You can go to his website, cjevolution.com. Subscribe to his show, because what I think is fascinating is that the drama and comedy and criminal justice is the top 3 categories that garner the most downloads. And I think that's very, very interesting. I read a report, everybody, almost every podcast is either in business or they're in self-help, like every single one.
Yeah.
So I would think that they're the most downloaded category. It's literally not. Like the most listened to is like comedy, drama, and criminal justice. And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I never knew that, Sean. That's the first time I've heard of it when you just said it. I never knew that it was. I know podcasts obviously are big and there's different categories, obviously, but I never knew that criminal justice was one of the top. That's interesting.
It's one of the top 3, and like I said, I think that it's incredible. And there's just different reports that come out, from different places. When I was speaking at PodFest back in March 7th, 8th, 9th, we were in Orlando for PodFest, and they were going through the categories, and again, the number 1 category is comedy. Like if you have a comedy podcast, you're pretty golden. Like you got to be funny and all that, but you're pretty golden. So it's almost like podcasts have taken on a form of entertainment. And what do they call it? They call it edutainment, something like that, info edutainment or something like that. Because you're learning and people are using podcasts as the new YouTube, the new Google, to learn things while they're driving down the road or they're at work or they're doing chores around the house or whatever they're working on. So I mean, I do I'd rather drive to a speaking engagement that's 7-8 hours away because I have all these podcasts that have been built up and downloaded. So I just listen to them. So, I mean, if they're hour-long podcasts, I'm like, oh, that's 7 hours of my time. I'll get through 7 episodes, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I love podcasts. I've been listening to them for a long time, and when I'm working out or on hikes or I mean, they're not going away, man. I mean, they're huge and they're getting bigger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. So I read a report yesterday that said that we are approaching 660,000 podcasts that are available. That's
wow.
what I said. We're approaching that 660,000 podcasts, which is crazy. And only 29% of people have ever listened to a show, have listened like at least one episode.
It's so amazing.
I'm like, wow.
Because people are like, well, you're retired now, Pat. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, I have a podcast that I work on, and I got some other stuff. And they're like, okay, what's that? Not everybody, but like to your point. I mean, a lot of people don't know what it is, and then you got to explain it to them, and they're like, well, what do I do? How do I listen to it? I'm not good with technology. It's simple, man. Just go to iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever. Totally free.
Oh yeah, yep. And so I mean, it's so totally true. I think that we're just now because podcasts are getting bigger. Ad revenue is getting more into the like I heard in my show back in February on the 12th, 13th, and 14th. Jared Jewelers bought a commercial to my show.
That is awesome.
For Valentine's Day because On the 12th, 13th, and 14th, I had relationship experts. And on the 14th, I had a sex expert. And her whole thing was how to have hot, juicy sex. That was what it was. And so Jared Jewelers literally bought a commercial to my show, those 3 shows. I was like, no kidding. They're like, yeah, we want to sponsor the show.
Why
like,
wouldn't they? Yeah, yes. They want to get in front of your listeners. They want to get in front of the listeners. That's awesome, brother.
But I think it's important to note that they bought a commercial to the show because it was Valentine's Day and because I had relationship experts. Like, I was relevant. It was relevant to them. People are listening to the show about, oh my God, Valentine's Day is coming up, and maybe I should get this, and So I think we're moving in that direction. So, but becoming a leader inside of that podcast space is getting harder and harder and harder. Guys who did it before, like John Lee Dumas and Pat Flynn, and the guys who've been doing it since the early 2000s. They've got 1,000 episodes, and they're the leaders. So it's like, how do you become a leader in a space that is ever changing and ever growing? And so for the last couple minutes, that we're on the show, that's what I want to talk about is your expertise on business and organizational leadership.
Well, I went to college with, and I have the leadership experience in the military, the degrees, that say I'm educated now in organizational leadership. But I think a lot of it was just in the military, Sean, and being a police officer now.
Yep.
I just believe if you want to rise, among the sea of podcasts out there, you just got to be authentic. You got to keep plugging through, keep going forward, have great content, be engaging, be approachable. Meaning, people call me all the time. They're like, hey, can you talk to me? I was listening to the show. Yes, of course. I think the big thing for me is being authentic and just be real. Don't be somebody that you're not. And I think that's going to help you rise among the rest of the podcasters out there. And yes, there's a lot of competition, but hey, life is competition, man. Give somebody, give something great back to the listener, and they're going to keep tuning in. And, I've done research, and you probably know this, Sean. A lot of people start podcasts, and then when they're the number one podcast out there, they'll quit, and, but I think it's just, being Yeah, and they just, and there were times where I was like, maybe I should just do something else, but I just kept with it, man. And every time I talk to people, Sean, it pumps me up. It just really, really excites me because I'm learning from you. Hopefully your listeners are learning from me, and that's what keeps me going. It's just I love talking to people. I love hearing people's experiences, and I am blessed to have the people that have been on my show, the great guests that are coming on the show. I've had John Lee Dumas on my show. I don't know if you know that, but it was amazing talking to him because he was on for about 15 minutes and gave some amazing advice. Now, you might be thinking about, what does John Lee Dumas have anything to do with criminal justice? Are you kidding? He has everything to do with criminal justice because he's talking about resiliency. He's talking about determination. He's talking about going for your dreams. That should be our mission, too, no matter what you're doing out there. I talk to cops all the time. If you want to start a business, do it. If you want to start a podcast, I'll help you. I'll give you advice. Here, do it. But a lot of people don't want to do that, Sean. They want to sit on the sidelines. We only have this one shot at life, right? There's no coming back. And realistically, if you look at the bigger picture, we're not here very long. So why not go for your dreams? Those people are coming back from the military that don't know what to do. Do some self-reflection. Educate yourself. You got so many talents. Tap into those. People getting out of law enforcement. What are you going to do? Start that business that you've been talking about. Write that book that you've been talking about. These same law enforcement people crack me up because they will run into danger at a moment's notice, like our brave men and women in the military. But if the thought at putting themselves out there and speaking from the heart and writing that book terrifies most people. I just don't understand it. Just go for it. Just pump surround yourself with people that are going to pump you up and just go for it, man. And if you fail, so what? Get up and go again. Most people stop when they fail the first time. You got to keep going, man. You got to keep going.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like I'm in a good place because I'm never going to give up. But that people pod fade out, doing their podcast. They'll get like 20 or 30 episodes in, and they're like, oh, this is hard. I have to edit the show, and like nobody's listening.
I'm not making millions of dollars. Not making millions of dollars.
Right? I bought all these programs from John Lee Dumas and like all these other podcasters who told me that I make millions of dollars. I'm not getting any sponsorships. I've got like 1,000 listeners. I'm getting like 10 episode downloads, per episode. Like, I'm just going to stop.
Yeah.
So out of that approximately 660,000, there's approximately 115 to 120,000 active podcasts. So by numbers, I mean, I don't math very well, but you're telling me 500,000 podcasts are gone? Like there's no new episodes? Like they're, and people freak out about this. Like, oh my gosh. I'm like, dude, that's nothing. The life expectancy of a TV show is only about 3 years if you think about it. Hell, half of them were a 1-season, 2-season TV show, and they're like canceled. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, everybody freaks out. They're like, whoa, oh my gosh, like these podcasts. And I was like, that's nothing. It's going to increase. It's going to be like I want to do a 15-episode series. That's all I want to do. I just want to do 15 episodes. I believe that we're seeing a change and a parallel between TV and podcasts, where I just want to put out a 15-episode. Like, all I want to do is 15 episodes, right? A mini-series, if you will. A mini-series of recordings that people can just download and whatever they want to, you know what I mean? And I could offer it on iTunes, and it'll just be another marketing channel. But really, it's available on my website. However, you can search it on iTunes and podcasts and whatever. Yeah. But with Anchor, that's what they're doing. With Anchor, you are literally documenting your life for maybe 15 or 20 episodes, and then they're like, I'm done. I don't want to do this because that's all I wanted to do, and I'm going to move on to another series or, whatever. So I think you're going to see a lot more podcasts, but you see a lot more stop because that's almost being the norm.
Yeah, I agree. And I get excited, Sean, when I get, any new download, I get jazzed about it. I'm like, oh my God, somebody likes my show. And like you said, when I first started out, I'd get like 5 downloads, 3 downloads. But I took the opposite approach, and I'm like, my God, that's awesome. 3 people out there are listening to me and listening to my show. I got excited about that. I wasn't really concerned about, oh God, I don't have 300,000 downloads this day or this month. Because I knew it was going to gain momentum because I know what I want. I really, and it brings me to the next thing. I mean, I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. I really am. So if you put out there that you're going to suck and then, my podcast is going to be a failure and nobody's going to download it, guess what? That's what the universe is going to give you.
Yep.
So going back to that mindset, if you put it in your mind and you visualize, look, I'm going to have a good show. I'm going to do great things with the show and give back, because I really do. Servant leadership is another thing I love talking about, giving back.
I love that.
Shouldn't just be about you. You got to give back, man. You got to give back to society. You got to give back to your fellow human. So if you put that out there into the universe, man, the universe is going to abide. It is abundant. It's going to give you. And it might take some time. Nothing happens overnight. But again, that mindset, man, the universe is going to provide, and you're going to be a success.
Yeah, 100%. You said something about servant leadership, and I love that. Love the principle of servant leadership. What makes me laugh is people like, got to serve your way to the top. Got to serve your way to the top. And they'll put out these posts, serve your way to the top. And how can I serve? And, all this other stuff. And then every other post is, buy my stuff. Buy my stuff. You need to buy this. Yeah. But I need to serve your way to the top. You need to serve your way to the top. Buy my stuff. And you're like, wait, no, what? No. So tell us, what is your definition of servant leadership?
I think, servant leadership, and then there's all different kinds of definitions out there, Sean, as you know, but I think it's just, why are you doing what you're doing? Going back to that why question. Is it just for you? Is it just for you? Are you just doing it to make a buck and just, it's all about me? Now, I'm not saying making a buck is wrong. We all want to make money. Money is not a bad thing, which is another topic. But servant leadership to me is helping. In law enforcement, for me, it was being a servant leader was developing and mentoring and coaching those people to take my job, to be a servant to them, because really I'm there to work for these officers. Yeah, I might be a commander, or I'm a retired commander, but my job is to work for them, to develop them so they can be the best officer they can be. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Do I make mistakes? You damn right I do. But my primary goal is to serve them, to pump them up, and to develop and coach them so they can take my job. Now, a lot of leaders, quote, are threatened by that because, hey, man, we don't want to develop them. They can take my job. I don't view that as a threat because I'm a realist. I know that somebody is going to take my job one day. And I want to be part of that development and coaching to develop the next generation of law enforcement officers to become better than I was, better than my partner was, so they can push the profession forward. So that's maybe that's a long, convoluted answer, but that's my definition of servant leadership.
No, I love it. And you bring up a lot of great points. You know, the definition of leadership in itself is a true leader will build up other leaders, not build up followers. Mm-hmm. And so what I try to do on social media, in the military, in business, and really what I try to do, and everybody that works around me and I surround myself with, is I try to build them up. You know, I firmly believe in a rising tide lifts all ships in its pure form, that I'm going to build you up with no expectation. I'm going to build you up with no expectation. And you would not believe how many people share my stuff, or they refer me, or because I have zero expectation. Right? Everybody's full of expectations. I have zero expectations. I just want to help and serve in its purest form. And so when I think of servant leadership, I think of exactly what you said. I want to build up other leaders around me, and I want to prime them to take my job because I am trying to take somebody else's job, not methodically and maliciously, but I want to grow into the next person's job. I'm in this job right now to build up other leaders around me to teach them how to do my job. That's what I want to do. I want to train the next guy to take my job. And really, when you think about leaders, if I'm not training somebody below me to take my job and I fall out, who's going to do the job?
Exactly.
The guy that I took it from, he's already have his own job. He's above me. He already, that's not his place. So in business, especially in business, you know, you need to be training somebody for that next role, you know, in the evolution of growth. Because if you're not growing, you're dying, and you become stagnant. You become like, oh man, it's frightening how many people like the devil's idle hands, right? And they get stuck in a job and they're like, okay, I'm just gonna wreck stuff, and I'm just gonna be miserable and a cancer to everybody because my life sucks because I'm miserable and I'm not going anywhere. And the cancer spreads. So I love your answer. I feel like leaders should be building up other leaders to take their jobs because you should not be in that job forever. You should be going to the next job, and you should be growing to the next job. And if you're not, there's an issue.
Well, yeah, and I agree, and like I said, Sean, and there's a lot of people out there that view it as a threat. Well, I got to keep you down here, and I work with those people over the years.
Scarcity mindset.
Where we got to keep you down here because if I had to build you up, God, we can't have you outshine me. We can't have you be a rock star.
Right.
Which again, that should be the goal of every leader is to make their people below them rock stars. But again, in my experience, and you saw that in the military, you saw it in law enforcement, I did, you know, is a lot of people feel threatened about that. You know, I'm gonna stay in here. You're gonna have to pry my title away from me.
Yep.
You know. And I knew from a very long time ago. I knew a very long time ago that, you know, my day is going to end. You know, my time in law enforcement is going to end. And I think you have to have that, you know, you should just have that in mind down the road. That whatever you're doing right now, folks, is going to end. So what are you going to do next? Because we're all living longer, right? We all have second, third, fourth, fifth careers. So what are you doing to prepare yourself for when that day comes? Especially in law enforcement and in the military, you're one incident away from being injured, God forbid, seriously, where it's going to end your career. So what are you going to fall back on? What are you going to fall back on?
And if you think about it, if you joined at 18 in the military and you retire at 20 years, you're 38 going on 39. You have an entire lifetime ahead of you. That's only half your life. You have another half of a lifetime to go still. You know, there's so much time. And I'm so looking forward to it because I retire in November of 2021. and I retire.
There you
And I'm
go.
going to be a speaker full time and a trainer and a coach and a mentor and like what I'm doing out of the military with my radio show and speaking on stage and you know whatever I'm involved in. That's what I'm going to be doing. I already know this. I'm already setting it up that way because I've got 2 years to go. I know myself, right? I mean, I know I'm going to get restless. I'm going to get mad. I'll be like, okay, I got to do something. Like, I'm the busybody. I have to be doing something at all times, fiddling with a pencil, or something's got to be in my hands, or I got to be fixing something, or to be like doing something, reading a book, something. I can't just sit and watch TV. I've never been like that. I've never been a video gamer. I've never been a TV watcher. I've never been like I watch like an hour of TV or I watch a movie. I'm like, all right, back to work. Like I got things to do. Like I don't want to go on vacation. Like I don't want to do any of that stuff. Like I just want to. I want to work. I want to do stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And the one thing that really stuck out to what you just said, Sean, is that you know that's what you're going to be doing. Hell, you're doing it now. But what I took from what you just said was you're visualizing it. You visualize going onto that stage. You visualize mentoring and coaching people. You're doing it now. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You have to visualize you succeeding. Not you personally, but people out there that are listening. If you want to write that book, you have to visualize writing it. You have to visualize it being in Barnes & Nobles or on Amazon. You have to visualize that because subconsciously, and there's science behind this, Sean, you know this, there's science behind this that says when you visualize, your subconscious is going to push you naturally in that direction. So again, it's mindset.
Absolutely.
I'm a huge mindset person. You know, you and I are a lot alike. I can't sit still that very. Maybe I'm ADD. I don't know, but I can't sit still. I have to be doing something all the time. I'm like you. I just can't sit and veg out on the TV and the couch all day. You know, my wife cracks me up. She's like, "My God, you're busier now than you were when you were a police officer." I said, "Yeah, I'm constantly moving. I'm working on the podcast, working on a book, working on other stuff. So I'm just busy. I love it."
Yeah. I call it ADOS. When I get on stage, I the first thing I say when I get on stage is like, I should have told the event organizer, but you know, with my condition that I have, I forget. You know, so if I start wandering around, just put me back on stage, please. I was diagnosed with ADOS, which is attention deficit squirrel.
I love that. Look at that squirrel over there running around.
Yeah, so I mean,
love it.
So in the military, from 2009 to 2013, I was a drill instructor for Air Force basic training, and my hat strap. So on your hat strap, your trainer will give you a nickname, and then you're stuck with that nickname. So hopefully you're not like a bag of crap. But he gave me the nickname Hammy, and I was like, Hammy? He's like, yeah, the squirrel from over the hedge. And I was like, what? And so I looked at over the hedge.
I love it.
Like, oh God. And he's like, dude, that's you. Like you spaz out and you freak out. And you're like talking super fast. Nobody can understand you. I was like, well, I get excited. And they're like, well, don't. And then as he told everybody, like our newest, student MTI is now, a full-fledged drill instructor. Congratulations. I present Hammy. And they're like, yes, Hammy, yes. Oh, yes. Everybody saw it. I was like, crap. So I was stuck with Hammy for 4 years.
I love it. Hilarious. My nickname in the military and in law enforcement was Fitz, my first 4 letters of my last name. Because people in the military, I remember when I got to down in Georgia to basic training, and the drill instructor looked at my name, and he couldn't pronounce it. He just started calling me Alphabet. He's like, Alphabet, get over here. And but then the nickname Fitz stuck, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, I was called that all throughout my military career and law enforcement. So
very cool. Very cool. So as we start to close the show, I want to do a shameless plug. You can plug friends, quotes, websites, Facebook, whatever it is, your podcast, whatever it is that you want the listeners to know and to do. Shameless plug moment. Go.
Well, I'm not going to concentrate so much on me, but you already did it, Sean, and I really do appreciate it, sir. If you want to go to cjevolution.com and check out my site, I sure would appreciate it, and listen to the shows and let me know how I'm doing. But, yeah, again, back to that, giving back. I mean, I really encourage the listeners out there to really, you got a lot of great information from Sean and I, and do those self-assessments if you're having doubt. Do some self-reflection. You got so much to offer the world, man. You really, really do, and you are a superhero. You got so many great things that you can give back to the world. So do that self-reflection, work on yourself right now, and go out there and just kick butt.
There it is. Words of wisdom right there. Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the show. Loved the conversation. I think that this is going to be an amazing episode for those that are getting into business, that are transitioning from the military or transitioning from law enforcement into the next chapter of life, because I just think that everyone, including me, you, everybody, we just need to do a better job of making sure of educating the people of the world that are going through these moments of life. You know, no matter what you do in life, there's always a transition, there's always a transformation, and just educate yourself on your own self-awareness and the resources that are available.
Yeah, we really quick, Sean. We got so many resources out there, folks. We live in the greatest age right now. Information's at your fingertips. So, Sean, it's been a pleasure and honor, sir, being on your show, and I love what you're doing. Keep up the fantastic work.
Thank you for an amazing episode. Life Transformation Radio listeners, connect with Patrick. He is absolutely incredible. The LinkedIn, the Instagram, it's right there in the show notes. Go to www.cjevolution.com and subscribe to his podcast. It is absolutely incredible. The guests that he brings on the show are absolutely incredible, and he is doing the world an amazing service. With that, I want to leave you with this. Live your brand. Find opportunities every day to live out the core values that you hold deep in your heart. And I call this living your brand. So until next episode, live a great life.